It's the 24th of November 2021. Hope everybody's doing good. If that's possible in a nuclear world. Dana Durnford, nuclear proctologist.org is where I hang my shingle. And you can call in if you want to scrap or say hi or debate. 709-589-4406. 709-589-4406. Let's get rid of the crappy music. Actually, I kind of like that little piece there, but alrighty then. All the phone lines are open. Did I mention it? Here we go. Rock and roll. Humanity's number one enemy is called IAEA. It's just part of this corporation known as United Nations. They're just a corporation. This is Creature. Now, we've covered him many times over the year. He's a nuclear physicist from Taiwan. Big shot nuclear physicist from Taiwan who refuses to... He went on a hunger strike to import radioactive food from Fukushima prefectures into Tokyo a couple of years ago. This is a follow-up map from France. That's a study over there showing you, unequivocal, that it had to affect humans. They were breathing in roughly 360 plus atoms of the sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs. These are nasty elements created by spraying salt water on... See, a nuclear meltdown could burn at around 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And what that translates into is that the water, the salt water, because you couldn't have access to fresh water, they were spraying on it. There was this phenomenon they knew from ocean detonations, nuclear weapons tests, which is the same as a war, right? It's the same bombs, the same radioactive fallout. Some of them bombs were equal to 3,800 Hiroshima bombs going off at the same time. It's the same amount of radiation. They're lunatics. Global popularity of nuclear power is declining. If you were right there now and down, I'd kick you. Get up and run around, I'd kick you while you're down. Get it? Okay, whatever. Somebody got it. Several environmental groups on Tuesday rejected one of the arguments recently made by supporters of nuclear power. We haven't got no Geiger counter tonight, Dana? No. I can fix that in a minute, though. How about I fix it just because I'm like that? Well, bear with me. I'll play you a video, a quick video where we're doing that. Let's just find the right one here, or two. There's so much, right, that you can't keep up with it. Yes. I actually can't keep up with any of it, can I? This is just a 26-second video.
So, for example, coming here...
Hang on, I'll back that up. We need a little bit, 1 minute video. Hang on. There's usually so many of them kicking around. A DCA, how many people is aware of DCA? It's a cure for cancer. And it's a mineral. It reduced all tumors by 70% in the first 3 weeks. It was a Canadian discovery.
Applications and is relatively cheap. But as CTV's medical specialist Avis Favreau explains, redeveloping the drug may not fit into the business plans of the big pharmaceutical companies.
The tumor, the 3D
Dr. Evangelos Mikalakis has given cancer researchers a brand new lead with an old drug, a cheap, inexpensive powder that costs just pennies a dose.
You typically get this eureka kind of feeling, and it's actually the most exciting thing scientists can get.
The drug, called DCA in short, has been used for decades in humans with some rare inherited diseases. When he added it to the water of mice and rats given human cancers, the results surprised him.
And has this big tumor growing in his back. So you can see that even after 3 weeks there is a significant or 70% decrease in tumor size.
It shrunk brain, breast and lung tumors in the animals in a matter of weeks, and the drug had no side effects, confirmed by tests of DCA in humans for other diseases.
This kind of results, to my mind, are as good as it gets.
And it seems to work by reviving the energy-producing components of human cells, allowing the cells to work normally again, triggering cancerous cells to commit suicide. Scientists agree that DCA now needs to be tested quickly.
And, of course, they couldn't get funding in university to do human studies. In the university. There's no money in cures, right? It's called DCA, and you can order it in from Amazon.com also. But in America, you can walk into a pharmacy and they don't need a prescription. Nuclear energy share, the global gross energy generation continues its slow but steady decline from a peak of 17.5%. 1996 to 10.1% last year. The report pointed out that the utility scale of solar energy costs came down 90% and wind 70%, and nuclear cost increased 33% by 1/3. That's incredible. Nuclear energy is getting marginalized in emerging electricity markets worldwide. This was Taiwan. And nuclear advocate Hang, who initiated the campaign for the public vote, is the same guy we covered in 2018. This is him on a hunger strike to get food imports from Fukushima nuclear wasteland on the ballot for Taiwan. It's sedition, that's murder, right? He wanted to import radioactive food from a nuclear wasteland. Now, he equated it with bananas and potato chips and walking in the sunshine and getting on an airplane and bananas. I'll show you the difference between man-made and the stuff he is trying to manipulate Taiwan with Stephen Starr.
Long-lived radionuclides, such as cesium-137, are something new to us as a species. They did not exist on Earth in any appreciable quantities during the entire evolution of complex life. Although they are invisible to our senses, they are millions of times more poisonous than most of the common poisons we are familiar with. Because cancer, leukemia, genetic mutations, birth defects, malformations, and abortions at concentrations almost below human recognition and comprehension, they are lethal at the atomic or molecular level. They emit radiation, invisible forms of matter and energy that we might compare to fire, because radiation burns and destroys human tissue. But unlike the fire of fossil fuels, the nuclear fire that issues forth from radioactive elements cannot be extinguished. It's not a fire that can be scattered or suffocated, because it burns at the atomic level. It comes from the disintegration of single atoms. Thus, radioactivity is a term which indicates how many radioactive atoms are disintegrating in a time period. We measure the intensity of radioactivity by the rate of disintegrations and the energy they produce. 1 becquerel is equal to 1 atomic disintegration per second. 1 curie is defined as that amount of any radioactive material that will decay at a rate of 37 billion disintegrations per second. So 1 curie equals 37 billion becquerels. Sometimes these man-made radionuclides are compared to naturally occurring radionuclides, such as potassium-40, which is always found in bananas and other fruits. However, this is a false comparison, since naturally occurring radioactive elements are very weakly radioactive. In the charts from the labs that are in green up there, the radioactivity is described as a specific activity. Note that potassium-40 has a specific activity of 71 10-millionths of a curie per gram. Compare that to the 88 curies per gram for cesium-137. It's like comparing a stick of dynamite to an atomic bomb.
Okay, just to remind you what we're talking about. So banana, potassium-40, which is harmless, you're acclimated and everything else is on the planet to it through genetic superior selection. In other words, we regulated your body, it's homeostasis, so your body regulates it the same way as a thermostat regulates the temperature of your house, or your cruise control regulates the speed of your car. Your body automatically regulates potassium, so you can't get extra. You can only get whatever the body, and you use it and consume it, and everything does. My clothing does, everything. This has potassium. Everything has potassium to it. So it's a complete disingenuous, dishonest, deceptive, and deceitful comparison to compare. And of course, the first couple of years after Fukushima, I came out and stomped on everything that in the videos that said bananas. I come out, literally curb stomped everybody in the media worldwide, every university, everybody from Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Oxford, MIT, that mentioned a banana in a comparison. I made a video reply, chopped up their video, and then called them scumbags. So the reactors, you got 5 million pounds. So 88 times 37 billion atomic decays per curie. And a curie is basically a gram, right? Or this is per gram they're talking about, rather. And so you can eat you can eat pounds of potassium, and all you're going to do is just poop it out. It's like eating beans. It's harmless. But if you eat a gram of curry, the Geiger counter is going to be 88 of cesium. You're going to be 88 times 37 billion atomic decays. So let's just do the math, because that's kind of fun, right? So you can understand there's why losing millions and millions and millions of pounds is so devastating to the planet. This is a prime example of it. I'll bring you over to the desktop here. So we're going to go 88 times 37 billion. 88 times 37 billions equals trillions, zillions. So you got per gram, this is how many isotopes are now distributed into the environment, pulsing energy every second with a gram, right? So when I talk about the fuel rods that are in the pool are pulsing energy, splitting the atoms, this is what I'm talking about. They're creating infinitely more than that. Take the exact same number and multiply it by that each day, because you got 440 nuclear power plants worldwide that are splitting the atoms. So a meltdown or an accident where stuff catches fire, a gram, when you got a gram like that, imagine dividing that into 5 million pounds per reactor building. You can see what the issue is. There's so many atoms. So this person here is equating it with harmless stuff when it's actually, that should be a crime. And so tonight we got a poll, and the poll is, should people like him who lie about nuclear and promotes nuclear through lies, and lies result in deaths, Should they be held accountable? Should people who promote nuclear power be labeled as a terrorist? Should people who promote nuclear power be labeled a terrorist? I gotta say that that's the appropriate label. That's exactly what they're doing. That's terrorism on a whole different scale. They're releasing dirty bombs into your communities and your countries and your oceans and your planet at a scale that is staggering, that is inconceivable for most people. Except for those who happen to watch this, maybe they get a handle on it. Also voicing opposition to nuclear power, calling it slow, expensive, troublesome, unreliable. Hey, don't forget, because I went out and done the research for 5 to 6 months a year on the Pacific Ocean for 6 years. That's before, this is after. It's an extinction event. And we done this year after year. The species never came back. All the way to Alaska each year. Okay, all right. This is real as it gets. At a separate press conference in Taipei, Ku said among 93 nuclear power reactors across the world in which construction was suspended over the past 50 years, work only restarted on 7 of them. And Greenpeace, now if Greenpeace had only tweeted out, because I tweeted this clip a lot of the times, and said the people on the right are not in the fuel pool on the left.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011, leading to the country's worst nuclear disaster.
She's there as much as I was, look. So all of these journalists, there's many of them that done that, claimed they were at the fuel pool on top of a building that don't exist. But you know where the pool was? It was now in the shape of atoms, and now it was these invisible plumes covering the planet with incredible destruction. And this is climate change in overdrive on top of that. So the isotopes to the right are just a tiny fraction of what should be in that model also. Just a fraction of a fraction. And that model was only based on venting. It's not based on the actual building to your left. So the building to your left lost around 15 million pounds. 15 million pounds. So 15 million pounds when you of just, it's going to be cesium and then absurd amount of strontium. But the biggest byproduct is going to be curium isotopes. Curium. And curium isotopes, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium fission product. I'll give you an idea how nasty that is. Pulsing energy every second at the speed of light for millions or billions of years. Also voicing opposition to nuclear power, blah, blah, blah. Greenpeace, right? So if Greenpeace had tweeted that out, and the rest of it, urged the country to continue on a path to being a nuclear-free and voiced concern over the safety of nuclear power. They also asked local government heads across Taiwan to make public their position on the issue of reactivating the Fort nuclear power plant. That's what's going on the referendum coming up in Taiwan. And another thing they should put on the referendum in Taiwan, of course, is should people who promote nuclear power be labeled as terrorists? That'd be pretty cool on a referendum, yeah. I like that idea a lot. Okay. Now, Taiwan has an incredible story with their nuclear waste. An island, one of the islands in the northern part of, they're a big island themselves, right? One of the islands, though, north of them, that's basically giant onto them, is a native reserve, and the government nuclear industry went in there and asked the natives, could they build a tuna canning factory close by? And they were like, sure, you can. And so they built their nuclear repository and called it a tuna canning factory. Taiwan did. Right? And scumbags like this in particular. This is what they do down there. Taiwan also had 2,000 nuclear students, university students in nuclear, that spammed the internet after it melted down for over 2 years straight. Every comment, every tweet, every Facebook, the nuclear industry, we're just talking, there's many countries done this, by the way, but we confirmed that was Taiwan because a story broke about it a few years ago. They had 2,000 students each day in class spamming the internet, saying it's like a banana and a potato chip. Fukushima was harmless after Fukushima nuclear meltdown. See, we're going to be talking about tools. There's another tool. This is a popular guy on the internet. Now, all he does is his dad was military. He's connected some way because he talks about it in his older days. But here he's talking about Fukushima, saying it didn't happen. And he's reading a script. This is what he do. You'll see him read.
This is what I've got on the inside. Look at that. Portlock wild smoked salmon. Now, before anybody says anything about Fukushima, don't even talk to me about Fukushima. I've got the Geiger counters. I can do tests if I really wanted to worry. You don't have to worry because Fukushima was a total scam. Total scam. 100%. The fish are fine. The ocean's fine. It's all scam.
Yeah, it's all a scam. And then this study shows it's not a scam. 450,000 times above detection levels in Washington, Seattle, and it persisted for weeks. This was a model of some of the fallout covering the entire planet in just 1 month with this model.
I'm not joking. They took the radioactive debris from Fukushima the day after the tsunami hit, and they had it all ready to go. The 60 years worth of stored radioactive fuel, they had it all ready to go on pallets. The reactor was already shut down in maintenance mode when the earthquake hit. Then the tsunami came in, and Fukushima sits about 30 to 40 feet up off the ocean, up on a big mound. And so the wave that came in was only 30 to 40 feet high at the most, so it only got a couple feet of water that came in. They faked the damage, took the debris, the 60 years worth of stored radioactive debris, took it quickly, had to have buried it in the ground somewhere nearby, not far away, I mean, in the same region most likely, and buried it in a casket of, buried the waste in the casket of tsunami debris, and then blow up the thing 2 days later, 3 days later, and sprinkle some radium around so you get a radioactive debris, slight detection, kind of heavy, making the Geiger counters click around the plant itself, and then everything goes away within a few years. No radiation reaches the shores of the United States, no radiation detected. I drove all the way across the country taking readings, and here we are. I still can take readings, and it's still incredibly low. It's below what we would consider normal range being 30 to 40 clicks per minute.
So he drove across the country. Now, his Geiger counter is not going to find that, by the way. That's not going to show up in his Geiger counter. The plutonium is not going to show up in his Geiger counter. It's uranium fission products, curium. And for him to claim that it was lower than 30 to 40 counts per minute right across the entire country, when we have an absurd amount of documentation. And then to claim that they had all the fuel on pallets, and then claiming the waves only came in a couple of feet, this is ludicrous. What a terrible, horrific, disgusting scumbag he turned out to be, eh? 30 billion yen eyed to protect the fishery products after Fukushima water releases. Japan's going to put aside 30 billion yen, which is 260 million US, for reputation damage to the fishermen. And a lot of that is going to go to buy it off the fishermen if they can't sell it, and freeze it so that when people stop paying attention, then they could sell it. They're lunatics, eh? They're actual lunatics. Is slated to earmark 30 billion yen, 260 million US, to tackle possible falls in the fisheries product prices that could follow the planned release of the empty tanks, and they call it treated radioactive water. Now, if you go back and look at my videos on tanks that I've done in the last couple of months, where I actually have all the documentation on this, they're counting you don't, and they're counting that you don't find me. That's why you see no views on my videos, to discourage people from even looking at it. We've been at this a long time, and we're just getting going. So 260 million for reputation damage is what they're talking about. Reputational damage from the release of the treated water. Well, so they want you to think about the treated water. They don't want you to think about... There is no treated water, by the way. And I'll quantify that in a minute for you. Because the tanks, the numbers we're talking about are 200... it's 2.2 sieverts per liter minimum. And you go back and watch the videos that I produced on that subject, and you'll well, like, how can you have, hang on, wait for it. How can you have all this radiation per square meter, the second row to your left, right? So this row here in that city, it's 229,000 per square meter. But over at the alleged tanks, there's no radiation. But all the communities far, far away from the tanks are covered in radiation. But ground zero, they're claiming there's no radiation. There's probably... Okay. Reputational damage. I'm going to look for the tanks right quick for you. Maybe that'll be better. Here we go. Fukushima tanks 2013 may have already been emptied. There's about 1,000 different types of fission product, by the way. 2 sieverts per hour. So these tanks, each of these tanks, and I counted the tanks, by the way, there's only 750, not 1,000 like they're claiming. By the way, they had 1,000 in 2013, 1,200 in 2014, 900 in 2017, and 1,000 now in 2021. But when you actually go look at the pictures, you can only, the most you can count is 750. You see those blue ones up there? They're the little tiny ones. That's if you count them as individuals. And you can see more of them over there that are blue. They're little tiny tanks, right? Counting them as one each, they're still only 750. They're not... Now, if you fill up a tank at 2.2 sieverts per hour, because that's the actual numbers that we got from documentation that was allegedly going into these tanks, that means you got 1.4 million in each tank. So if you fill up one of those tanks, then that's a lethal dose if you're over there by the water. That's still a lethal dose from X-rays and neutron bursts and gamma shine. All the sweet stuff that melts your organs, you know. And therefore, if they were filling it up, you can't actually build another tank on the site because you'll die. By the way, the tanks are just bolted together, right? They're only meant to last a couple of years. And then just the radioactive fallout, there's this Bromson lung effect, this breaking effect. So radioactive fallout, you can see my Geiger counter, all this pulsing. It's the same thing we're onto, but this is much more intense, obviously. Hang on. So each of these are pulsing energy at 186,000 miles per second in every direction, and they hit each other at that speed. They change direction at the speed of light, because it's gamma against beta and beta against alpha and alpha against neutrons. And they're pounding each other and changing direction. You create another effect known as Bremsstrahlung, which is a German word, but it's basically causing this X-ray over the entire area along with everything else. You're getting this brutal X-ray. That'll sterilize all the insects, therefore the birds can't produce there. Because we were covering a study of 56 birds that had nests and had little hatchlings. And the 2 birds in each nest, 56 I can't remember it now. What was it? It was 50 birds, and it was 5.6 million insects in 21 days to get the hatchlings raised and fledged. 5.6 million insects out of 50 birds' nests would appear in each bird plus the little chicklets. And so when this sterilizes your country, and it did, then you expect to see the decrease in increments over a decade or so of insects. And some, like the ones with a lot of natural predators, they're called feeder insects, like mosquitoes and that. So frogs will eat it, fish will eat it, birds will eat it, dragonflies will eat the mosquitoes, blah, 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 blah. So a lot of species eat certain species of insects because they're prolific. So when they got no natural predators, then they show, and what's one of the worst ones to show up in droves when you're outdoors is mosquitoes. And so if they got no natural predators, they're one of the last to go, basically. So the claim that it claims is still, okay, so they're talking about it only being tritium in leftover from the tanks. Now we got done entire presentations on this. That tells the story much better, but I always do this backwards. Hang on. Because this is important. So some stuff you can't gloss over. TEPCO to abandon the REVA system. Let me think about that one. So TEPCO to abandon the REVA system, which was right alongside of the ELP system. For the last 3 years, the system has been unused and kept out of operation. One of the problems will be dismantling and disposing of the decontamination system as it become contaminated itself. And the radiation levels measured in the system pose a risk to workers. That's August 12, 2014. And then that's the REVA system for water, and the ELP system is the same thing. Like they claim it's doing this, they claim it's doing that, but the reality of it was, as you go. So this one was the ELP system. This is June the 23rd, 2014, the ELP system. So the ELP system water has not only damaged equipment causing corrosion and leaks, but prevents workers from spending periods of time near the system because of radiation. Because if you take radiation at 2.2 sieverts, put it through a filter. Within a few moments, the filter is tens and 20s and hundreds of sieverts. Within 1 hour, it's thousands of sieverts. Within 24 hours, it's millions of sieverts. You can't get in the building again. Like the walls got to be 12 feet thick. It'd have to be a hot box, and it's not, right? There is no filtration system. It's still being operated in a trial status, but I got too much there in the folder to find the exact one for you. But that ELP system and the Arriva system, which is France, didn't work at all, period, in the first 3.5 years, for sure. We got that documented, which is the crucial time, right? So everything for the first 3.5 years. Now remember, 680 kilometers of coastline got washed away. It was a very long time before they actually got to the ELP system. And there's 1,900 pictures, the original pictures that I got from TEPCO's website, that I'm going to have to do those videos this week or next week. We'll start next week, I guess. And then this year was 736 pictures came out in January from TEPCO, and they were all redacted. But we got headlines from the first month, and we're going to marry them up to the date of the pictures. And you're going to go, these people are despicable lawyers, I can guarantee you. The triple, I had to go looking for the word nuclear, because you won't find that in the same sentence anymore. Triple meltdown, they call it. It's a triple nuclear meltdown, right? Triple nuclear meltdown. It's actually 4. This is reactor 1. That's not the real picture of it blowing up. I put that in there just for some people. This is actually a real video, though, of it blowing up. The buildings are 190 feet high. You see there? Those rectangle, they're the reactors. Let's watch it one more time. They're 190 feet high, 19-story buildings, 19-story apartment building. And outside, the one was up to 1 million sieverts, that same one. Gee, I wonder why. I didn't think it had exploded. Dana, did it explode? Throw the fuel everywhere? Is that why it's 1 million sieverts? My goodness, you're sharp. This is reactor 2. It blew up, caught fire, blew up, and caught fire. It burnt continuously for days, lost its entire inventory. What was left went China's syndrome, straight down into the earth. This is, well, it was reactor 3. This was the mixed oxide fuel facility. And that one went boom, baby. They'll burn 200,000 times hotter when they go off. They're like a big firecracker. And the only thing left of that 190-foot building is a stump. But hey, don't tell that to the nuclear industry. They want you to believe that it's all hunky-dory to the left. In fact, this is what it looks like inside of the building, the fuel pool right at the top of that building that don't exist. Do you think that's suspicious? Or am I just being a ninny? Now hang on, there's still one more reactor. Reactor 4, isn't she pretty? Isn't she something? That's about the prettiest building I ever saw. Dana? Well, that's if you believe their story. That was reactor 4. That's the top part of it. Over on the other side of it, you can't barely see it, is the bottom part of the reactor. Top part of the reactor, bottom part of the reactor. That's the cover, the lid for the reactor. That's the elevator shaft. That goes all the way up to where my finger is, 190 feet up. And they'll lower 50-ton cast down through that hole to a transfer truck, a special one. And it'll drive away with it. But that's not too often, of course. You can see there's no guts. All the guts are hanging out of it that's left. There's nothing functional in a 190-foot building. The fuel pool's behind where my finger is to. They're supposed to be up where about right here where my fingers are to. They don't exist. That's decades of reactor cores. So the solution was tear everything off with cranes and kill all the homeless you can get your hands on. bring in this structure with cranes that was made somewhere else, put panels on it. I went through a lot of homeless people to create that. Oops. Done it again, did we? And so they kill all these homeless people, and then they're going to pretend, and they did, the media came out and pretended that it was a 190-foot building, and at the very top of it, because that's a 190-foot building to your right. So then they want you to believe it looks like that. And they produce all kinds of videos, all kinds of journalists. We're getting the fuel out of reactor 4. Actually, there's reactor 4. It covered the entire planet. This is the Atlantic Ocean. That's the Pacific over there. Wake up. We're in real trouble. All you got to do is speak out. The industry, as soon as you speak out, the industry is going to defecate. They're going to reach down and get their hands in that and wipe it all over themselves. So they'll gross out anybody yelling at them. And then they can go home and pretend that they're heroes again. In a bid to prevent misinformation about radiation. Treated water which still contains tritium. You can't decontaminate this water because the filter is a lethal dose from a quarter mile away within 24 hours. You can't actually filter this. It's fuel, for God's sakes. So instead of thinking of it as water, think of it as a fuel rod in water, because that's basically what it is. They're pouring water over the melted reactor core, and then there's wells on the site, and they're sucking some of that up. But what they want you to believe, and this is why the lie is so big, they want you to believe that the tanks are full and there's no harm to the Pacific Ocean. I forgot to mention that earlier. But that's why they want to dump it, because they're sick of telling the lie. Most of them are retiring, and will the new generation keep the lie alive, right? So the solution is to get rid of the tanks before... Now, the International Atomic Energy Agency went to get water samples, not from the tanks, but from 20 miles offshore. They're going to monitor the water offshore. Not the stuff in the tanks, because that means you got to go there. They're not going to Fukushima under any circumstances. You got better chances of getting hit by a Soviet satellite in 3, 2, 1. Are you still there? Are you okay? Misinformation about radiation, which is what they spread. That is treated water and there's only tritium. There's misinformation. $30 billion for misinformation, reputational damage, you say. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good haul, you ask me. It's $260 million because of reputation. No, they'll just freeze the fish and sell it when you stop bitching and whining. Because that's what you've been doing for 10 years, right? You bastards are lying, and go away and forget about it. Like, activist is good. But then the activist goes home, doesn't relaxes, enjoys herself for the next year till next year. I'm here pounding, curb stomping all day, every day. It's brutal pace, and got to kick it in second gear. That's the problem. I need a co-host, like a physical co-host, to bring the story alive. If I ever get a break. Specifically, a new fund will be created to support fishers over multiple years. So they're for the long haul, not the short haul. Misinformation, which is all they give you, is lies and deceit and deception. It still contains tritium. That's an insult, okay? And that's murder, by the way. That's a genocide. That's against the laws of the ocean to dump your nuclear waste into the ocean. The lethal doses constantly for 10 years, multiple reactors straight into the ocean, basically, over continents. The ministry will help fishing industry groups and others develop new sales channels. The ministry has also considered providing aid to cover costs of frozen storage of fish products. What an evil country. What an evil industry in particular. Well, there is a good story tonight, believe it or not. Hydrostor plans a 400 megawatt compressed air storage in the United States of America. Do tell. We cover this a lot, this stuff. I'll show you a diagram of what that's basically, a basic, not their diagram, but from another story. It's the same thing. So you're going to take extra energy and you're going to compress it. And what they're going to do is going to have 8 hours of energy a day stored in compressed air for the first kick of the can at 400 megawatts. It'll be able to deliver 400 megawatts of electricity for 8 hours. That's 1/3 of a full-blown reactor for 8 hours for peak power, right? Each day. They got 8 hours of compressed air storage. And they're doing something unique. Will be comparable in size to some of California's largest fossil fuel power plants for 8 hours at a time. It's fantastic news, eh? Hopefully, like if you've done this for all sources of energy out there, it can only get better. Project has a target of commercial operation for early 2024. 3 years, 3 years time. Project is expected to have around $800 million. And of course, the nuclear industry robs so much money. They have a lot of influence because they bought up a lot of media with that money over the last 7.5 decades. An affiliate of Hydrostor filed an application for 400 megawatt. Let me put it on the big screen. They deployed compressed air energy storage that is able to store and dispatch energy over long durations. So it first compresses off-peak or surplus energy from the grid, producing heated, compressed air. The heat is extracted from the air and stored inside a thermal store, preserving the energy for later use. Wow. So they're gonna save the heat and feed it back after. The compressed air is stored in a tank that uses a process called hydrostatic compensation to maintain constant pressure. Get a load of this. So when the energy needs to be dispatched, pressure forces air to the surface where it's recombined with the heat and sent through a turbine producing dispatchable electricity. Wow. With a 50-year shelf life, uses no toxic materials, is emission-free, and can provide rotational inertia in support of grid stability. In other words, it can do peak power every day, day in, day out. Often renewable energies, right? You set that up off wind. If you got wind and solar feeding into that, and you triple the capacity, you got sustained, consistent pressure. Because I think that's the way to go personally, but who am I? I don't know jack shit, right? But they're going bigger after. This is the first kick at the can. And that's significant, as big as any fossil fuel plant. Our international conference is plagued by groupthink. It's groupthink, I know. Groupthink, I call. Well, this is based off the Conference of Parties, 26. Raphael Grossi, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Devil Agency, recalled that at the previous Constipated Party meetings, I was warned not to even attend. And he did attend, telling the public that no one died from radiation at Fukushima, which was followed by some in the audiences laughing to signal their disbelief. And courageously, the head of the IAEA didn't concede. In fact, extreme increases in mortality caused by cardiac diseases, death rates might give the creeps to people. In one community, in a 1 month period, there was an extra 12,700 people died of heart attacks. So if you checked all the communities and used the stats, it's staggering. It's staggering. Courageously, gross piece of shit didn't concede, saying, "The facts are the facts," says the perpetual liar, explaining that thousands of deaths that occurred were due to tsunami and and the stress of evacuation. Like all the tsunamis and cyclones, all the cyclones and all the hurricanes and all the major storms, we've seen millions and millions and millions of people, even in the United States, evacuate, up to 6 and 7 million at a time evacuate. We've never seen 3,000 people drop dead. You know why they were evacuating? So they wouldn't drop dead. Do you know when they evacuated? Long after they should have. And, they did have an earthquake, a massive one. They did have a big tsunami that took out 680 kilometers of coastline and all the infrastructure. And they did have adverse conditions across the whole country due to the earthquake. But you still don't see that happening, right? Where 3,000. So claiming that the only people died, they died from the stress of evacuation is absurdness. It's a coward thing to do. It's an outrageous thing to do. And so people like that is why we got a poll tonight. We got a poll that asks us the question, should people who promote nuclear power be labeled terrorists? You got 25 votes, 96%, and some terrorists said no. But Grossi is a terrorist. In fact, I have unofficial footage of Gross, of a drill. No, this is Grossi right there. That's unique footage I got of him. Nobody else got that footage. He also promotes the A-10 Warthog using depleted uranium munitions. The United Nations does, IAEA. This shoots 1.5 tons of depleted uranium a minute. That's equal to 44,000 Hiroshima bombs worth of low-level radiation. The stuff they're shooting, the depleted uranium, used to be called DOLRAM, depleted uranium low-level radioactive material. They got rid of the latter part of the acronym quite a while back. Nobody knows why or who done it, but worldwide they only called it DU one day. Not a conspiracy, of course. And 1.5 tons a minute of depleted uranium munitions, pyrophoric, so it catches fires going through the air, releasing radiation into the environment. It's absurd. It's absurdness in overdrive. But that story that we were talking about, Financial Times, they're discussing the Financial Times. And she got catcalls from social media condemning her shameful and ignorant behavior, with them accusing her not to have countered the IAEA's claim. Now, she's a 100% nuclear troll. I covered her before. She said afterwards I read a UN study, which is the IAEA study, published this year on the 10th anniversary, which in Grossi's arguments reported no adverse health effects on the local population. Now, I covered that last night. Obviously, that's not true. From radiation sickness and projected none in the future. 28 out of every 100 pregnancies result in miscarriages or abortions. Congenital heart diseases operations rose 14% per 100,000. 14,200 infants and neonates need complex open heart surgery across the entire country of Japan. So in other words, it's surged, right? But the Financial Post is out there trying to cover groceries because he was ridiculed. He was embarrassed when it happened to him. And he had to defend himself, right? We covered that during the Constipated Parties 26. She concluded that she had been too negative for herself on nuclear and had written her piece to defend the scumbag. Even if this may infuriate the anti-nuclear chaps lobby, the anti-nuclear lobby, I wish there was an anti-nuclear lobby, and provoke more social media attacks. This can serve as a... So if you question her lies, you're a lobbyist. She said, even if one could somehow prove there was a lot more victims from Fukushima than currently assumed, the rarity of the event would still strengthen nuclear as the safest energy form, even ahead of solar and wind. 7 people died on one shopping street in Fukushima. Do you have a city in your community like that? 40% of hospital visitors showed internal exposure. But 100% of all the species, the 4.4 million species, and all of humanity were brutally irradiated. And you will see an incredible disparity in male to female being born in the last 10 years. And this is what we've seen after nuclear testing, by the way. That doesn't matter. The World Health Organization is a special agency of the United Nations, such as the World Trade Organization and the International Atomic Energy Agency, operate independent of the UN but maintain formal partnership agreements. You can have subsidiary companies if you're a structured corporation, which is what they are. They're just a corporation. They're like Walmart, Facebook, or whatever. They're just a big corporation, which happens to be 196 militaries. That's what United Nations is, right? Just go look at United Nations war with North Korea. 3 million casualties. United Nations killed. They first got formed. Within a couple of years, they had their army together, and they went out and tried to take out North Korea, and that flopped on them. And with 3 million casualties, they burnt down every community in North Korea. And then everybody's wondering why North Korea can't stand United Nations. The 7th of April, 1948, 73 years ago, they were formed. Provides technical assistance. The country sets international health standards. A corporation like Walmart sets international health standards. And the World Health Organization is a specialized agency of a corporation, also known as United Nations. So I can create a corporation, call it United Nations 2, and create subsidiary like the World Health Organization 2, an International Atomic Energy Agency 2, and I'm the same as them. I'm no different than them, except I don't have 196 militaries throwing money at me and willing to go to war. The UN system includes a multitude of specialized agencies, funds, and programs, like the World Bank Group, extremely powerful, obviously, the World Health Organization, the World Food Program, UNESCO, UNICEF. North America, every kid had to get a UNICEF box each year and go around and beg for money to give to this despicable scumbag organization, so it become monolithic and out of control. The scumbag organization, its officers can't arrest you, can't give you a ticket, nothing. They got a problem, they got to call the police. They're just rental cops. They're not officers. And its agencies won many Nobel Peace Prizes, which means that's been taken over. Called it ineffective, and criticism calls it ineffective, bigoted, and baseless, and biased, and corrupt, prejudice. And look at all the subsidiary companies of this corporation. And the whole world's supposed to go, Jesus, they just started another group, said World Asshole Organization. I guess I'm part of that, because apparently I'm an asshole. You get where I'm going? They just create group after group. Well, how do we take over this section? We've got to get a World Tourism Organization. Got to get a Universal Postal Union Organization. United Nations Industrial Development Organization. The Educational, Scientific, and Culture Organization. Monetary Funds. Telecommunication Union. International Telecommunication Union is actually United Nations. So they're 100% about taking over global. They're like, please, we want to run the planet. Let us run the planet. We promise not to F it up. They got, like, it's absurd. Universal Postal Union, World Bank Group, World Health Organization, World Intellectual Property Organization, World Meteorological Organizations. World Health Organization, let's talk about them, she said. So, using the World Health Organization, obviously a bigoted and racist and prejudiced and biased corporation, it's a lobbying group for the military-industrial complex. And they want all the resources for themselves. They want all the coal and oil and gas for them for the next billion years to rule the solar system with. So the COPS 9, which is another one, were the tobacco control measures, global tobacco control, which they had at the same time as Constipated Party 26, was the Constipated Party number 9, which is a different facet of the same, but it got a lot of traction right in the media, Constipated Party 26. The 9th session of the Conference of the Parties to the World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. See, there's nothing binding. If you break the convention, they can't do nothing to you. Well, they're trying to put them in a position where they regulate all the tourism. They regulate all. They're the mob, right? This is a global mafia group that's completely out of control and is reach around buddies with the military-industrial complexes. In Geneva, Switzerland, where they can put their money and nobody knows is allowed to look at the bank account. Nuclear must be a ticket to a carbon-free future, so why do environmental haters? Well, and they show the first picture they show you is a nuclear power plant, steam chimneys surrounded by farms. So the farms are sucking up radiation. This is a new one they're going to put down in the United Kingdom, surrounded by farms. Why is it almost every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms, I wonder? Because the radiation ends up in the farms. It's always hemorrhaging out of the fuel pools. And it's absolutely, unequivocally, hideously insidious that they would do something like that, yeah? So the radiation fallout, we've done research expeditions from Vancouver, all of Vancouver Island, 480-mile island, all the way up to Alaska, year after year after year. And the species are all gone, for sure. Not maybe, not almost, but they're gone. We know because we went and done the research. Nuclear could be the ticket to a carbon-free future. Expanding U.S. nuclear power and energy source that many environmentalists, so if you don't like it, you're an environmentalist apparently, Could be the most reliable way to achieve carbon-free electricity. Well, last year there was 261 gigawatts of energy online, of renewables, which is the animosity equivalent of 300 nuclear power plants. So the big problem with nuclear was it done this. This is disposition radioactive fallout from France. And it's showing you radiation covering the entire planet in just 15 days. And that should terrify you. That should horrify you. This is not a game. It didn't... The radiation didn't stop. This model is only based on 15 days. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Goran. I'll look at it after, for sure. Hi, everybody. So we got rumors of a nuclear plant accident in Spain. One dead, several injured. Wow. I'll be looking for that. We might get updates tonight if we got another event going on. And then we'll cover it hardcore tomorrow if there is. So, on top of radiation covering the whole planet, they got all the nuclear power plants in farmland. Okay, I was in St. John's today, and this is a picture from the night. I got a little video coming up there. So this is, that's a windshield for the quad with mirrors on it. And I got for 100. And underneath it is 6 foot shelves. Each one of these boxes is 115 pounds. So there's no bolting these shelves together. They're 6 feet high, 4 feet wide. But what you can do is you can have 2 3-foot tables that weigh 50-something pounds each. These are steel tables, right? So time you put a bunch of stuff on the lower shelves, they're very sturdy tables. So I got 2 steel tables with the storage for the garage, because we got so much equipment, and we need the workbench, right? And then I got 2 of them. That was $230, and then the windshield was 100. It's 330. It's the 24th of November. So Wednesday. So we got a second-hand shield for the quad, and we got 2 1,000 pounders. They can both hold 1,000 pounds. But one of them you can double table, like this one here, or you can just have a big rack, right? So one will be double tables. They can handle 500 pounds each. And then the other one will be for a full rack, because you can't see it, but the garage is a disaster. And they were 115 each. Okay, so we also, yesterday, I ordered the sockets for the garage lights, because they're 160 watt lights, and they're on sale. The price went up yesterday. I ordered them yesterday, and then the price went up right away, $10. And then the landing gear and the leg for the drone should be here this week, hopefully, or halfway through December. So it's been an expensive an expensive couple of... Trying to keep up with expenses, right? And I got myself stretched all the way out now. And we raised $50 today also. So that takes the edge off spending all that money. But what am I supposed to do? I can't leave everything on the floor, right? Because the floor is actually just a tarp floor. And winter is here, heavy rains, lots of snow coming. Heavy rains right now. And we can't have... That's the only thing missing. We needed a work area. But it's so dark in there because there's no windows. You could get cheaper lights, but they're not comfortable to work with. So I couldn't do that, right? I ordered them in on Amazon. They'll be here next weekend, hopefully. And I got a lot of work to get done. And so we're hoping people... 24th. Some people will donate over the next couple of days. I'll show you how to donate, by the way, as soon as we're here. Under the video you're watching right now, or every video I got, that's the video that's playing right now. Under the video, scroll down and you'll see PayPal. That's directly to me to donate, and the nuclear proctologist. So PayPal is self-explanatory. Don't click on requests, click on send. And that'll take you to send directly to my PayPal. You're going straight to it right there to donate. And then at my website, scroll down under the first picture, you'll see a donate button. Just click on that and you can donate with credit cards. And away you go, right? And here we go. Hi everybody, let's come in and say goodnight. 5 hours ago, 30 votes. Got 32 likes, 29 people watching. And that's the show tonight. I was in, like I say, in St. John's today, and I still got, I got to clean out the garage tomorrow or the next day if the weather's good, and set up those shelves. They're 116 pounds each. So I'll strap them to the wall, and then we got, because the place, you can't do nothing. There's not enough room to squeeze in there. So we have to come up with a solution. That's the solution. Because we got outboard motors, we got all kinds of equipment. It's just, that's the way to go. We can't go renting storage, right? Because then you got to pay it every month. And you got to travel there and come travel back. So it's a portable storage. That thing is all plywood on the inside. So it's 12 feet by 20 feet, right? It's all plywood on the inside. And you can take it apart and move it somewhere else from one day. So that's long term, that was the solution. It's just, you can't, winter's here, I can't keep waiting. And so I got to push to try to raise the money because I already spent it, which was my pension, of course. So hopefully over the next week we can raise enough to cover most of that. All right, so let's say goodnight to everybody. I'm going to end the poll. Should people who promote nuclear power be labeled a terrorist? So if you think they should be labeled a terrorist after, give me a thumbs up if you're watching this later. And this was heavy censure tonight and last night. Yeah, good night, everybody. I'm going to go up to the first comments, come backwards. Colette S. Hi, Colette. And Dana Nasana. And Ella. And Lori. I only serve one king. Thomas. Thank you, Thomas. Oh, yeah, we got a donation. Let me cover that. Ralph J. donated 50 Canadian, 48 Canadian. It worked out, so thank you. Ralph, that took the sting off it right away, right? It'll take me a week to get that together and start doing projects, but we'll get it. Because it's not going to be on sale forever, right? So, Christian, good night, everyone. And James Lucid. Unabated nuclear core meltdown is equal to a boatload of bananas. I hear you, man. Yeah, heavy censorship tonight. Daryl Murray voted yes. Port Angeles, thank you. I am. Jesus the model. Four-sided grape in America a few days ago. Wow. Four-sided grape. What's the odds of that, really? I'm just scrolling down through the comments quickly. Mutant Botanical Garden. Sounds cool. Rare two-headed turtle found in Massachusetts Wildlife Center. Crazy, eh? John Schiffitz. I can't pronounce your name right now. I got to squint my eyes just to see it. Should make the print a bit bigger. Hang on. Yeah, and so tomorrow night is Thursday show. Marjorie Evans. Hi, Marjorie. Wolf Mango. Tree Fruit. .301 Goran, a nuclear plant accident in Spain. 1 dead, several injured. Wow. I'll be all over that in a few minutes. Ted Richards. Andrew B. Jeez, lots of people commenting. John 2H. Hi, John. Yeah, good night, everybody. Thank you, James. Awesome. Big hugs for you, my friend. Okay, I got everybody. I'll be looking for that story right away. Hope it's not serious. This planet can't handle another serious nuclear accident. We have an extinction event playing out from Fukushima. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Have a great night. Great day tomorrow. I'm going to start cleaning up the garage. Get it organized. I'm looking forward to it. Have a great night, everybody. God bless.